The ship Varnic's light drifted slowly through space, like a broken toy in an endless ocean. Its lights flickered. Its engines had died 3 days ago. And now, the silence was starting to feel alive. Captain Krell stood by the window of the command deck. His pale green hands gripped the metal rail tightly. He didn't blink. He just stared into the blackness of space, hoping for movement, any sign of help. Still nothing, asked Helena, the ship's young navigator. Krell shook his head. We've sent the distress signal every standard hour. No reply. Helena looked down at her console. Maybe they didn't receive it. Maybe the relay satellite is too far. Krell's voice was quiet. Or maybe the crew of Varnic's Light had been assigned a secret mission. Their orders were simple. Scan the edges of the Forbidden Zone. They were told not to enter it, just observe, report back. But things had gone wrong fast. On their second day in the region, something strange happened. All their long-range communications shut down. The main engine systems glitched, then the power core began to leak energy. The chief engineer, Dorn, barely stopped it before it exploded. Now, 5 days later, they were trapped in a dead zone. No backup, no rescue. And worst of all, they were drifting closer and closer to the void. Helena whispered, "Do you think it's true, what they say about the void?" Krell turned to her, his expression tight. "What do you mean, that it eats ships? That once you enter, you don't come out?" Krell didn't answer right away. He walked to the middle of the room. The lights above flickered again. "I think," he said finally, "we've already gone too close." In the lower decks, Chief Dorn sat alone in the engine room, talking softly to himself. "Just a bit more power, just one more spark," he said, tapping wires and screens. Suddenly he heard a click behind him. He turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Then the lights in the hallway behind him dimmed. "Who's there?" He shouted. "Silence." He stood up, grabbed a small tool from his belt, and walked toward the hallway. His boots echoed on the floor, too loud for comfort. Nothing moved. Nothing answered. Back on the bridge, Krell stared at the sensors. "We're still drifting," he said. "No changes in course." Helena frowned. "That's strange." "What?" She pointed to a blinking spot on the screen. "This dot. It's not part of the map. I've never seen it before. Could it be a glitch? I don't know. It's faint, but moving." Krell leaned in. Distance. About 300,000 kilometers. It wasn't there before. Krell stared for a moment longer, then said, "Send a scan." Helena did. They waited. No response. "Try a message," Krell said. She tapped the console and sent a standard contact request in Galactic code. Still nothing, down below. Dorn returned to the engine room. His hands were shaking. "Captain," he said, overcome, "something strange is happening down here." "What kind of strange?" "I thought I heard something walking. There's no one down there except you." "I know that," Dorn snapped. "That's why I'm telling you," Krell frowned. "Return to the bridge." Before Dorn could reply, all the ship's lights turned off. Darkness, total silence. Then the emergency red lights came, on them pulsing like a heartbeat. Helena gasped. "What just happened?" "I don't know," Krell said. "Maybe a power overload." "Dorn, report." Nothing. Dorn respond. Still silence. Krell looked at Helena, tracked his signal. Helena typed fast, her fingers trembling. I can't find him. He's not on the map. That's impossible." Suddenly, a noise echoed through the ship. A low, metallic sound, like something heavy scraping across the outer hull. Krell's eyes widened. "Did you hear that?" Helena nodded, her voice small. "What is it?" Krell ran to the viewing window. He looked out. Nothing. Blackness. Stars. Empty space. But then, just the shape, and the silence that came with it was worse than noise. "Krell," Helena whispered. "That thing? It's moving toward us." He just stared, heart pounding. The sound came again, louder now, closer, like metal on metal. Then, on the screen, the blinking dot returned. Brighter this time, and there was another one behind it. Helena spoke, barely able to breathe. "Captain, there are more now." Krell turned slowly. "How many for?" "All moving in the same direction." He stepped back. "Toward us." "Yes." He opened the cons again. "Dorn, if you're there, answer now." A crackling noise came through the speaker. Then a voice, but it wasn't Dorn. It was human, old, broken, whispering. "You shouldn't have come here." Krell's blood froze. What was that? Then silence. The screen flashed, every light on the bridge turned blue, then red, then black, for 1 second. Everything stopped. Then, all systems rebooted. But the symbols on the screen were different now. Terran. Krell didn't understand the language. But he knew the shape of those letters. Terran language, he whispered. Helna's voice shook. But humans haven't been in this sector for 100 years. Krell didn't answer. He walked back to the window. This time, the shape was closer, much closer. He could make out parts of the hull. It was huge, black metal with sharp edges and glowing blue vents, and on its side, something was carved, not painted, not welded carved, a message. He couldn't read it, but he felt its weight. A warning. Helna backed away from the screen. I think it's a warship. Krell turned, He looked pale, human. He took a deep breath. This doesn't make sense. Helna nodded. Maybe it never was supposed to. As the warship moved closer, the scraping sound this time, like claws on steel. Then, finally, silence again. No light, no screens, no signal. Just 2 ships in the dark, and something watching from the void. The ship Varnic's light hung silently in space, caught in the shadow of the giant Terran warship. No one on the alien ship moved. No one spoke. The unknown warship sat less than 2 kilometers away, silent and cold, like a dead god floating. In the dark, Captain Krell's breath fogged up the glass of the viewing window. His eyes were locked on the Terran vessel's shape. It looked old, very old. Its hull was broken in places, bent and scratched like it had been through 1,000 battles. But no known human ship had been seen in this region for a century. Helna's voice broke the silence. It's not answering. She had sent multiple calls, standard galactic hails, emergency signals, even a direct ping in old Terran binary code. There was no response, no sound, no movement. It's just sitting there, she whispered. Krell turned from the window. Maybe it's dead. Then how did it appear? It wasn't on sensors. It came from nowhere. Krell didn't answer. Something felt wrong. The longer he stared at the warship, the heavier his chest felt, like pressure was building inside him. He looked around the bridge and saw the same in Helna's eyes. Fear not from what they saw, but from what they felt. Then the sound came again, clang louder this time, a deep metal echo, not from their ship, but from outside. Somewhere in the dark, Helna jumped. There it is again. Krell pressed his hand to the wall, trying to feel the vibration. Nothing. Scan the area, he ordered Helna. Still nothing. But what, there's a new object? Close. How close? Her eyes went wide. 300 meters. Krell's heart pounded. That's right next to us. On the screen, a new dot appeared, small, moving toward their ship. Suddenly, lights began to flicker in the hallway behind them. The door to the bridge slid open. Cold air rushed in. Helna stood slowly. Is someone there? No answer? Krell grabbed a pulse torch and stepped into the hallway. The corridor stretched into darkness. Emergency lights blinked slowly. Every blink revealed more shadows, like something was moving just beyond the reach of the light. Krell walked forward, listening to his own footsteps. Tap, 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 ... Then another sound, tap, 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 but not from him. From behind, he spun around. Nothing. He turned back, hand froze. A dark shape stood at the far end of the hallway. Not moving, tall, thin, wearing an old Terran spacesuit. But the helmet was cracked, and there was nothing inside Krell. Helna shouted from the bridge. He blinked and the figure was gone. He ran back. What happened? She asked. I saw something. A suit. But it vanished. Helna looked pale. Captain, the docking system just activated. What? We didn't trigger it. The warship is linking to us. A docking bridge is extending. No, Krell said quickly. Shut it down. I can't. It's overriding our system. Krell ran to the screen. Sure enough, a bridge was forming, stretching from the Terran warship to Varnic's light. Long, metallic, covered in old Terran markings. Prepare the blast doors, he said. Lock the airlock. Already tried, Helna replied. It's not working. The screen flashed again. Words appeared. Open. Krell read them out loud. His hands tightened into fists. They want us to come. Or something wants in, Helena whispered. Down in engineering, the lights turned fully red. Chief Dorn was back, tools in hand. He hadn't heard from the bridge. His communicator was filled with static. Not now, he muttered, trying to fix the battery link. Come on, hold together. He looked up and saw movement. Someone walked past the doorway. Just a shadow, Captain, he called. No reply. He stepped into the hallway. It was empty. Then he saw something strange. A smear on the wall, dark red, blood, but no one was bleeding. Then he saw the helmet, a Terran helmet, half melted, hanging from a pipe. His legs froze. Suddenly, all lights in the corridor went black. A whisper echoed down the hallway. Come see. Dorn turned and ran. Back on the bridge, Krell and Helena watched as the docking bridge connected fully. Their ship shook slightly. We're locked, she said. Krell nodded. We need to go over what? She gasped. Captain, no. We need answers. We can't just sit here and wait for whatever this is to break in. She didn't argue, just nodded. They put on light armor and oxygen masks. Krell took 2 soldiers with Himras and Vago. The 4 of them stepped into the docking chamber. The outer doors opened with a loud hiss. Cold air met their skin. The Terran bridge extended like a ribcage. Black metal, narrow, dim blue lights flickered above. They walked slowly. Every step echoed through the empty bridge. Helena whispered, I feel like it's watching us. They reached the Terran ship's door. It was already open. The inside was dark. Dust floated in the air like snow. They entered. Old signs lined the hallway. Warnings, symbols in Terran language. The walls were scorched and dented. Laser burns marked the floors. Bullet holes covered the ceilings. Looks like a war happened here, Vago muttered. No, Krell said quietly. Something else. Look. He pointed to the wall. A handprint burned. Into the metal dot, too large for a human. Too long, they moved forward. The bridge was just ahead. When they reached it, they found the captain's chair. Empty, screens were cracked, panels smashed, but one screen still worked. It glowed softly. He, LNA, moved closer. It's playing something. She tapped a key. The screen came to life. A video. A human officer stood on the screen, face pale, eyes wide. He spoke quickly. If this is being watched, turn back now. This ship, it's not what it was. We opened something. We saw things. It comes through signals. It learns through metal. It feeds through systems. We tried to shut it down, but we were too late. Behind him, a shadow moved. He turned, screamed. Then the screen went black. Everyone stared in silence. Helena spoke first. We need to leave. Krell nodded. Now, they turned to exit, but the door behind them was closed. Sealed. RASS tried to open it. It's locked. It's not responding. The hallway lights turned off. Darkness again. Then whispers dot from every wall, every pipe, every speaker. We see you. We are inside. Krell raised his torch. The air turned cold. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows. A human, but his eyes were black, and his mouth stitched shut with wire. Behind him, more figures appeared, moving like puppets. Ras screamed. Krell fired his torch, but the light passed through them like smoke. Run, he shouted. They pushed the door open using emergency override. Sparks flew. The door slid open halfway. They crawled through and ran back across the bridge. The alien ship was still. There, they jumped inside, closed the hatch. Krell yelled. Helena hit the controls. The bridge disconnected. The warship floated backward. Silent again, Krell gasped for air. What was that? Helena asked. Krell looked back through the window. The Terran ship didn't follow, but its lights came. On dot, every window on the warship lit up. Dot inside each one was a face. The lights of Varnic's light flickered again. Every member of the crew was silent. The bridge felt colder than before, even with emergency power restored. Captain Krell stood near the window, staring at the Terran warship still floating outside. It hadn't moved, it hadn't fired, but something had changed. They were watching us, Helena whispered. Her voice was thin, almost breaking. All those faces. They looked straight at us. Krell nodded slowly. They weren't alive. Then what were they? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Whatever had taken control of the Terran ship wasn't natural. It wasn't a crew, or a computer, or even a weapon. It was something else, something that had learned to live inside a ship. Inside metal and signals and silence, a voice broke through the quiet. I heard them. It was Chief Dorn. He stood at the doorway to the bridge, shaking his uniform torn and dirty. His eyes were red. They spoke to me when I was alone down there. They whispered through the walls. Krell walked toward him. "How did you get back? We lost your signal." "I don't know," Dorn said. "I blacked out, and then I was in the medical bay. But no one helped me. I just woke up." Helena looked disturbed. "We searched that bay. You weren't there." Dorn didn't respond. He just kept shaking. "They called the warship Revenant." I heard that word. Over and over again, Krell froze. "Revenant," he repeated. Dorn nodded. Over and over. The Revenant. Returns Helena checked her terminal. "That's not listed in any Terran registry. No ship named Revenant." Krell stepped back to the main console. "Check the ship's ID signature. We never got one before." Helena ran a deep scan. After a few moments, a result appeared, a long string of numbers. She traced the registration, then her hands stopped moving. "What this ship? It matches the energy core signature of a Titan-class warship lost 200 years ago." Krell leaned over. "Where?" "Battle of Grim Terminus." The final clash between the Terrans and the Enthal Empire. That war ended in silence, Krell whispered. No survivors on either side. Helena stared at him. This ship wasn't just lost, it was erased from the records. Its name blacked out. Its crew sealed. Krell frowned. Why erase a warship, unless they didn't want anyone to find it again? A long beep came from the control panel. A signal, weak, garbled. "Captain," Helena said, "we're receiving a voice transmission." From the Terran ship, Krell's heart began to race. Put it through. The speaker crackled, dot. Then a low voice spoke, old, human, broken. "This is Captain Adrian Ross, of the Terran warship Revenant. If you're hearing this, run. Leave this place. We failed to stop it. The machine is no longer a machine. It learns. It feeds. It waits." Static followed. Then laughter, twisted, mechanical. Helena cut the signal. That voice it was a recording. An old one, Krell nodded. But it knew we were here. It played that message for us. Dorn stepped forward again, eyes wide. "It wants to be found." Suddenly, an alert screamed across the bridge. "Motion!" Helena shouted. "The war—" Moving, Krell ran to the window. The Revenant had turned slightly. Slowly, its massive engines powered up with a low hum that shook Varnic's light. "It's charging something," Helena said. "I don't know what it is, but the core readings are rising." "Are they targeting us?" Krell asked. "No, the energy is building inside their ship. It's not a weapon. I think it's something else. Some kind of internal system. Like what Dorn muttered. A door." Helena stared at the data. "Captain, there's a spatial anomaly forming in their cargo bay. A rift, Krell said, to where she looked up. "I don't think it's part of our universe." The bridge lights dimmed again. A deep, rumbling sound came through the walls, like the cry of a dying engine mixed with something unnatural, something alive. Then came the whispers again. "It returns. We awaken. Come inside." Krell's voice was tight. "We need to break away now." Helena tapped the controls. "Engines are still under repair. Dorn, we move." Dorn ran to the engineering panel. "I can give you 20% thrust. Enough to drift. Do it." The engines buzzed. A low groan passed through the ship's frame. Slowly, Varnic's light began to pull away. But not fast enough on the screen. A new shape appeared. From the side of the Revenant, a hatch opened. Not like a door, but like a wound from it. Something came out. It didn't have a clear shape. It was like a cloud of black glass, mixed with wires, fragments of armor, pieces of drones, floating, spinning, forming, breaking, then forming again. A storm, a living storm. Helena gasped. "It's heading toward us," Krell shouted. "Full power, now." Dorn pushed the engines to maximum. Sparks flew. The ship jerked forward. The storm followed. It wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. It wasn't trying to catch them, it was watching them. Then something even stranger happened. The storm stopped moving and split into two. One part turned away, floating back toward the Revenant. The other drifted into space, disappearing into the stars. Helena's voice shook. "Where?" Did it go? Krell stared. I don't think we want to know. The ship finally reached a safe distance. The Revenant powered down again. Its lights died, its signal vanished, and silence returned. But the damage was done. Krell turned to Dorn. We need to report this. Dorn nodded slowly. To who? Krell hesitated. The Galactic Council wouldn't believe them. The Terran High Command would deny the ship ever existed. No one would believe that a warship had returned from a forgotten battle, or that something now lived inside it. Helena suddenly spoke again. Captain, we have another problem. What is it? She showed him the screen. Their own ship's system had begun copying data files in Terran language, massive folders, encrypted with strange symbols. They hadn't downloaded anything. It's from the warship, Helena whispered. It's sending us something. No, Krell said. It's planting something. He opened the main menu. Too late. The screen turned black. One word appeared. Seated, Krell shouted. Kill the system. Shut down everything. Helena pulled the emergency cutoff. The lights died. Total darkness. Then backup lights flickered on. Support's holding, Dorn said. But the main AI is offline. Krell looked around. How did it get in? No one answered. He turned to the window once more. The Revenant hadn't moved. It was drifting again, quiet, empty. But now Varnix. Light felt different, colder, heavier, and somewhere in the distance of the ship, something was whispering again. The air inside Varnix light had turned colder than it should have been. The life support systems were running again, barely, but Captain Krell knew something wasn't right. The temperature readings didn't match the environmental controls. Everything looked fine on the screens, yet frost crept across the walls like ghostly fingers. Any new signals? Krell asked, standing behind the com station. Aylar shook her head slowly. Nothing, just static, and that faint pulse, still repeating every 13 seconds. That pulse the strange rhythm had started after they first heard the metal clank outside. It wasn't natural, it wasn't theirs. Krell had ordered full scans, but the sensors still saw nothing. No ships, no movement, just the same black void. Tarn, the ship's engineer, had taken it upon himself to inspect the hull. He wasn't supposed to go out alone, but after arguing with Krell for hours, the captain finally agreed. Now, Tarn was outside, slowly floating along the outer shell of the vessel in his suit. I'm near the ventral stabilizer, Tarn's voice crackled through the com. There's something odd here. A long scratch. Burn marks, too, but no sign of impact. Krell frowned. Can you tell if it's recent? It wasn't here before? Not when we launched this mission. I helped patch this area myself. This metal's been torn. Torn, Aylar whispered. By what? There's nothing here. Tarn didn't answer right away. The channel went quiet. Tarn, respond. I wait. His voice came back, shaky. Something just moved beneath me. Krell leaned closer to the console. Be specific. What did you see? Not see? Feel. The hull vibrated. Tarn, return to the airlock. Now, no response. Repeat. Tarn, return immediately. More silence. Then came a harsh scream, broken by static. Get him back! Krell yelled. Aylar was already on it, opening the airlock remotely. Cameras showed nothing. No Tarn, just the black space behind the ship. But then, the outer camera picked up movement, a shadow. It didn't glide like a ship or drift like debris. It moved with intention, fast. Then it was gone. He's not on the hull anymore, Aylar said quietly. I think we lost him. Krell's fists tightened. Tarn was gone. The only sign he had been there was a piece of his tether, torn and floating freely in space. Inside the ship, panic spread. Crew whispered about ghost machines and the ancient watchers. Myths, warnings, stories of strange things in the void, things that didn't need ships, didn't leave heat trails, didn't care about time or physics. And then it got worse. Lights flickered again. Despite the power being stable, doors opened on their own. Ralgor, one of the security officers, claimed he saw a figure in the engineering bay. It was tall, he said, trembling. It wasn't like us. Looked like old metal, rusted and wrong. Krell wanted to call it hallucination, but the fear on Ralgor's face said otherwise. Aylar and Krell went to investigate the bay. The lights were dim, humming softly. Nothing seemed out of place until they looked at the floor. There were wet, oily footprints, but no one else was inside. They weren't here before, Aylar whispered. No, Krell agreed, and no one entered. I checked the logs. No doors opened in this section for hours. That's when the sound came again. The same metal scrape, but this time it was inside. Both froze. The sound echoed through the walls long, slow, deliberate. It was coming from the storage decks below. Krell didn't hesitate. He grabbed a plasma cutter and motioned to Aylar with me. They moved down slowly, lights flickering above them. The lower decks were quiet to quiet. Even the air felt heavier here, as if something ancient pressed against the walls. The storage doors were open, not forced, not broken, just open inside. Crates were scattered, supplies crushed, some torn apart. Who would do this? Aylar muttered. Not who, Krell said, lifting his cutter. What? From the far side of the room, something moved. A metal limp-thin, spindly, covered in strange symbols. Then another. The creature stepped into view. It wasn't big, but it looked like it had been built from war wreckage. Rusted plates, exposed, wires, a single glowing eye. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there, watching them. Then it turned and walked back into the shadows. Krell and Aylar didn't follow. They backed away slowly and sealed the door. What the hell was that? Aylar asked. I don't know, Krell said, but it was here before us. Later that night, in the mess hall, the crew gathered. Krell stood before them. This ship is no longer safe. We've awakened something. I don't know what it wants, but I know it didn't come to help us. Then what do we do? Someone asked before Krell could answer. The lights went out. A low, grinding sound echoed through the halls, and this time it didn't stop. The void was no longer silent. Something had entered, and it was just getting started. The lights flickered again. Captain Krell clenched his jaw as cold crept into his bones. The Varnic's light had been in darkness for too long. Oxygen was low. Power was fading. But worst of all, something was out there, something watching. They still had no signals from the outside galaxy. The void was completely silent. But now, the silence itself felt wrong, like it was being forced, controlled, bent around their ship like a cage. Krell stood in the command bay, looking at the cracked star map. The stars weren't just out of reach, they seemed to vanish entirely, like they didn't exist here. We can't stay like this, First Officer Hearn muttered. We have to try the manual boosters. We can glide back into normal space. There's something out there, whispered Krina, the youngest crew member, eyes wide. I saw it again. Outside, a shape. Huge, just floating. Another hallucination, said Hearn quickly. You've been breathing too much recycled air. But Captain Krell wasn't so sure anymore. Describe what you saw, he said, turning to Krina. She hesitated, then spoke slowly. It was like a fortress, but not ours. Old, dead, covered in black metal and glowing lines. It didn't move, but it felt alive. Krell's skin prickled. That matched the strange sensor ghost they had picked up briefly yesterday, a massive shape that blinked in and out of their system. What if it's a trap? Hearn asked. Something ancient from before the council even formed. Then why hasn't it attacked? Krell replied. Maybe it already has, whispered Krina. We just don't know it yet. Later that cycle, they held a silent vote. Risk the boosters or investigate the strange object drifting just outside their sensor range. To Krell's surprise, the vote was unanimous. They would go toward the object. If it's a trap, Krell said, then let's spring it on our own terms. The Varnic's light drifted silently toward the massive structure. As they got closer, it came into view not as a ship, but a ruin, floating in the void, shaped like a dagger, enormous, blackened from battle or age. Strange markings covered the hull. Human markings. Earth standard. No, Krell whispered, stunned. It can't be. The Terrans never came this deep. This ship? It's too old, too massive. But the words were clear. TWS Revenant Humanity's Last Sword. Is it a warship? Hearn asked, scanning the silent giant. Yes, Krell said, voice cold. But this isn't just a warship. This is a ghost. They docked carefully at one of the outer airlocks. The hull was cold and still. No lights, no movement, but power. Traces still ran through its frame, barely alive, like an ancient beast sleeping in the dark. Why hasn't it responded? Hearn asked. No signals, said Krina. But the hull, it's humming. The moment they opened the lock, the atmosphere inside was still breathable. They entered slowly. Krell, Hearn, and Krina. The others stayed behind, monitoring Dot inside. The halls were dark and massive, lined with human machines, all offline. Dust floated in the air. "This ship shouldn't exist," Krell said. "Human ships this size are myths. They call them Titan. No records survive. They were erased after the First Galactic War." "Then why is it here?" asked Hearn to wait. Krina whispered, her voice shaking. "That's what it's doing, waiting for someone." They moved deeper past broken blast doors and control rooms covered in vines of wire. There were signs of battle inside Scorch. Marks, broken walls, remains of some old, brutal fight. Then they found the bridge, and on it bodies, frozen human bodies in armored suits, sitting in their posts. Dead for centuries. But their faces still looked angry, focused, ready for war. "This ship fought until the end," Hearn said quietly, "or beyond it," Krell replied. Then Krina gasped. One of the bodies moved. They all turned, but it wasn't alive. It was just twitching. A small jerk like a puppet string being pulled, and then a sound echoed through the ship. A deep, metallic voice. Slow, cold, command recognized, foreign boarding detected. Initiating revival protocols. Lights flickered on. To life, screens blinked open, showing ancient data in Earth Standard, and the bridge began to hum. Captain's biological signature not found. Awaiting override command. "What did we trigger?" Hearn whispered. "We woke it up," Krell said. "We didn't board a dead ship. We entered something that was sleeping." Suddenly, the Revenant shuddered. Outside the hull, something began to move. Giant claws retracted, turrets unfolded. Massive engines started warming. The entire ship groaned like a beast waking from a 1,000-year slumber back on the Varnix light. The crew panicked. "It's powering up," one of them shouted. "Something's moving in the distance." Krell activated his comm. "Get ready for emergency, Undakin. We may need to run," but Krina stepped forward. "No, we can't run. This ship, it's watching us. It knows us." "Now, why hasn't it attacked?" Hearn asked. "Because it's choosing," Krina said. "It's remembering what it was made for." Then the ship spoke again. "Foreign biosigns compatible. Hostile presence detected beyond perimeter. Initiating defensive mode." Suddenly, alarms rang across both ships. Sensors lit up. Something was coming from the void. Not one signal, not two. Hundreds. Alien Vestals. Dark spiked, fast, were swarming toward them. "They followed us," Krell hissed. Void dwellers, the legends were true. The Revenant's hull shimmered. Shields rose, cannons rotated. Old human technology, reawakening, and the dead ship, forgotten by time, now prepared to fight again. "For us?" Hearn whispered. "Or against us?" Krell didn't answer, because deep in the bridge, one final panel lit up showing a name, Project, Revenant, Human Defense Protocol. Allies of humanity will be protected. Enemies will be erased. And then, with a deafening roar that echoed through the void, the Terran warship fired. Darkness surrounded the alien ship. Varnix light, like a living creature. No stars, no planets. Just the black, endless void. Inside, the crew barely whispered. The terror had grown to real. Captain Krell stood in the central chamber, hands trembling. His eyes were locked on the screen, showing static noise, white and gray, flickering endlessly. Since the metallic scraping had begun 3 cycles ago, sleep had vanished. They all heard it now, every day, growing louder, closer. Crueler. Then, it happened again. A sound, deep and slow, like steel grinding against steel. Everyone froze. "It's above us." His voice cracked. "No movement on the outer sensors," said First Officer Elira, checking the console. "Still, nothing." "Then why do we all hear it?" asked Jorah, the youngest crew member, eyes wide with fear. "Are we going mad?" Krell didn't answer. He wasn't sure anymore. This void felt cursed, like something ancient watched them. Like they were in a place forgotten by time and never meant to be seen again. The crew tried to stay busy. Repairs, data logs, anything to escape the sound of the dark. But something had changed since they found the black shard from the old Terran wreck. It now pulsed faintly with red light, like a heartbeat. Ralvik had locked it in a sealed container. It reacts to proximity, he reported. If someone gets too close, it glows brighter. It's a warning, Jorah said. Or maybe a beacon. Krell didn't want to think about that. He still hoped for rescue, but nothing came. Just silence, cold and heavy. Until, one cycle later, the silence broke again, but this time with something far worse than scraping metal. A voice, it crackled through the broken speakers. Static, then something else. You should not be here. Everyone turned, breath caught. Krell's fingers hovered above the console. What was that? He asked. Jorah swallowed. That wasn't our system. Elira's hands trembled as she worked. I've checked every system. That signal came from outside the ship, but there's nothing out there. The voice returned. Return? What was taken? Ralvek stepped back from the Black Shard's container. The red glow was pulsing faster now. They're talking about the shard, he said. Krell nodded slowly. This isn't just human tech. This is something alive. Then we give it back, said Illyra, her voice rising. Now, throw it into space. But Jorah stepped in front of her. No, what if we anger it more? Ralvek stared at the container. It doesn't want to hurt us. It wants the shard back. Maybe that's the only reason we're still alive. Krell was torn. We don't know what it is. If we throw it out, what if it follows us anyway? But the decision was made for them. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew. Pressure drop in Sector 4, Illyra shouted. Ralvek ran diagnostics. Hull breach, but we didn't hit anything. There's nothing out there. Then the lights flickered, and the voice came again clearer, colder. Give it back, Krell shouted. Evacuate Sector 4. Seal the breach. But Illyra stood frozen, staring at the display. Captain, there's movement outside. What kind? She turned slowly. Not a ship, not a creature. Something. Massive. Metal. It just appeared. Put it on screen. The crew gathered around as the static cleared, and then they saw it. A shape, larger than anything they had ever seen. Dark, jagged. Its surface was scarred and covered in unknown runes. Lights blinked across its hull like dying stars. It wasn't a ship, it was a tomb. No life signs, said Ralvek, voice shaking. But it's moving, Jorah whispered. It looks like it's searching for us. The red shard pulsed. Again, bright and fast. The lights across the unknown vessel flared in response. They're linked, Krell said. That thing is Terran, or at least was. The voice came one last time, now deafening. Return it now. Ran to the airlock with the shard. No time. If this is the only way out, we try it. Krell hesitated. You sure? No, Ralvek said. But I'd rather throw this into the black than wait for that thing to come in and take it. They placed the shard into the launch chamber and fired it out into the void. It vanished into the dark. The ship fell silent. No grinding. No voice. Everyone waited. Then the giant shape turned. Its lights dimmed, and slowly it drifted back into the black, fading until nothing remained. For the first time in days, no sound came. Illyra whispered, It's gone? No, Krell said. It's watching. It was always watching. It just got what it wanted. Ralvek looked out the window. That wasn't a ship. It was a sentinel, a guardian, Jorah added. Of whatever humans left buried. Out here, Krell turned to his crew. From now on, we leave the void alone. But even as the crew relaxed and systems returned to normal, none of them saw the small red light that continued blinking silently in the corner of the ships. Cargo lay hidden behind an old crate. It hadn't ended, it had only just begun. The crew stood frozen. The voice had come again, not over the speakers, not through the ship's systems, but from inside their minds. A whisper, a cold, slow voice that didn't sound alive or even real. It is awake, the voice had said, and it remembers the war. Captain Krell stared at the others. Their eyes were wide with fear. No one spoke. The silence on the bridge was thick, heavy, and wrong. Tarn, the engineer, finally whispered. It wasn't a hallucination. We all heard it, didn't we? Zira nodded, slowly. Her hands were shaking. Yes, it came from somewhere deep, like under the skin. They had spent the last few hours inside the human warship, trying to understand how it worked. But no matter what they touched, nothing responded. The warship remained dark, quiet, and massive like a corpse floating in space. But now, something had changed. "I think it's watching us," said Vec, the youngest crew member. His voice trembled. "This ship, it knows we're here." Krell didn't want to believe it, but deep inside, he felt it too. The ship wasn't dead. It had been sleeping, and now it was waking up. They moved deeper into the warship, through long black metal corridors. Everything felt old, yet untouched. There was no dust, no decay. The metal walls looked as if they were made yesterday. He ran a scanner over it, frowning. "There's something behind this wall," he said. "A power source, massive. It's almost like a brain." Zero stepped back. "You mean it's alive?" "No," Tarn replied. "Not alive, but not dead either. It's something in between. Maybe controlled by an AI, maybe something else." Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered. For the first time, they saw the warship light up around them. Red emergency lights glowed on the walls. Symbols in an ancient human language flashed across the panels. Then, a low hum started beneath their feet. It was too deep to be heard clearly. It was more of a feeling than a sound. It felt like a growl, like the warship was. Angry Krell touched his communicator. Back to the shuttle. Now, but it was too late. The door they came through sealed shut. A heavy blast door dropped with a boom. They were trapped. Inside the warship's data core room, they found the strangest thing yet. A figure, not human, not fully machine. It stood motionless, half merged into the wall. Wires and black metal were wrapped around its limbs. Its face was covered by a mask. Symbols glowed faintly on its chest, human military symbols from the old wars. "What is that?" Vec asked in a whisper. Tarn stepped closer. "A drone. A pilot." "No, it's something else." As they watched, the figure moved. Its head slowly turned toward them. Not fast, not sudden, just slow and terrible. And then the whisper came again. "You are not soldiers," it said in their minds. "You do not belong." The lights flickered again. The doors locked down harder. A strange gas began to hiss into the room. Krell shouted, "Out! Get out of here!" They ran. The corridors twisted. Behind them, doors closing, paths changing. The ship was alive, and it was trying to trap them. It didn't want them to leave. Back on the Varnix light, Krenna was watching the sensors. She saw the warship come online. Slowly, its energy signature rising. Weapons coming online, one by one. Powering up, she whispered to herself. But there's no crew. No signal, nothing. She tried to contact the away team. Nothing. Only static. She sent another message. "Captain Krell, do you read me? The human ship. It's waking up. Please, respond." Still nothing then. Suddenly, a voice came through. But it wasn't Krell. It wasn't anyone she knew. "Do not run," the voice said. "Observe, learn, and remember your place." Then silence. Inside the warship, Krell and the others had made it to an old control center. Dozens of ancient screens lined the walls. They were glowing, now showing flashes of war, battles, burning planets, screaming ships, all from thousands of years ago. The humans had fought entire empires alone, and the screens showed warships 10 times. Larger than the one they were standing in, whole fleets made of black metal and white fire. And something else, something worse. In one video, the camera focused on a massive being tall, armored, not human. It stood in silence, then raised its hand. Ships exploded in the distance. "What was that?" Zira asked, her voice barely a whisper. "A weapon," Tarn replied. "A living weapon, human-made." Then the last screen lit up. It showed a message, a final log from the captain of this warship. "If you find this ship, you are either lost or foolish. We left this vessel here to sleep, not as a gift, not as a warning, but as a promise." The screen flickered and then went black. Suddenly, all around them, the warship groaned, like it was stretching after a long sleep. More lights turned on, doors opened, but not to let them escape. They were being herded, guided somewhere. "We have to go back," Krell said. "No," Vec said. "It's not letting us leave. It wants to show us something." Tarn turned to Krell. "Maybe it wants witnesses." To what, Krell asked, and then they saw it at the end of the corridor. A large chamber opened. Inside was a Mappa galactic star. Map. Red dots flashed across it. Each one was a destroyed planet. A message appeared on the wall. Do not forget what we are, what we were made to do. Zira stepped back. It's not a threat. It's a memory, Krell finished. They finally found a corridor that led back to their shuttle dock, but the door to space was sealed. Then the voice returned. You may leave now, it said. You have seen enough. The door hissed open. They rushed back to the shuttle. No one spoke. No one looked back. They launched quickly, flying back to their crippled ship from the viewport. They saw the Terran warship drift slowly, but now, lights glowed all across its hull. Engines were warming. Krell stared in silence. It's not sleeping anymore, he said. Tarn looked up. Do you think it's going somewhere? No, Krell replied. I think it's waiting. For what? Vec asked. And Krell answered quietly, for war. Back on the bridge of Varnic's Light, the crew gathered. They were shaken, terrified, but alive. We have to warn others, Zero said. No, Krell replied. We don't tell anyone, not yet. Why? Terran asked. This changes everything, because we entered the void. We broke the law. We saw what no one was meant to see. He looked at them all. If the galaxy finds out that human warships like that still exist, everything changes. They all went silent, sat in the captain's chair and looked out into the stars. And some silences, he whispered, should never be broken. The lights flickered again. Captain Krell stood frozen. The air inside the Varnic's Light had turned heavy, cold, and still. The emergency lights bathed the ship in red, and the strange pulses that had rocked their vessel for hours had finally stopped. Silence returned, but it felt worse now. They had seen it. The Terran warship. Or at least, they thought they had. But it had moved like a ghost. No heat signature, no communication, no warning. It just appeared behind the Varnox. Light. And then vanished again like something hiding in the dark. Zurek, the engineer, trembled as he crouched beside a wall panel. Captain, this ship, it's not like anything we know. I scanned it. The hull is made of material not in our databanks. It reflects nothing. It's like it's erasing itself. Did you get any visual data? Krell asked. Zurek nodded and pulled up a grainy image, just this. For less than a second, Krell leaned over. On the screen was a silhouette, long dagger-shaped, massive. But strange markings glowed faintly along its edges. Red lines, like ancient runes, or warnings. Were Terran symbols on it, Zurek whispered, but not modern ones. These were old, pre-contact. Relia, the ship's medic, stepped in. Captain, we shouldn't be here. That ship was waiting for something. I felt it. It didn't come by accident. I know, Krell said, jaw tight. We were lured here, and now it's watching. Suddenly, the ship trembled. The lights turned blue, and a voice spoke over the internal COMMs. Not theirs, not anyone's. It was human, but not alive. The voice was full of static, dry, rusted, like a message repeating from centuries ago. It said only one thing. You are trespassing. The warden is watching. The crew stood still. No one spoke. The warden, Relia finally said. What is that? Zurek looked pale. There was an old Terran myth before the Galactic Concord. Before they joined the stars, they had a program, an AI defense protocol, a guardian warship placed in deep space to protect Earth's long-lost colonies. But it was never confirmed. They said it vanished after Earth united. You mean Krell? Whispered. We just met a ghost of a Terran warship. No, worse, Zurek said. We met a warship that was never meant to be found. Hours passed. The Varnic's Light had regained partial power, but no one moved to escape. They were being watched. Sensors picked up nothing but every few hours. Something passed just outside the hull. Silent, cold, hidden. I'm not staying here, barked Elrose, one of the younger crew members. We have engines? We move now. Krell stared at him. And go where? Anywhere. Away from this, away from that ship. It hasn't attacked, maybe. It's a bluff. Zurek turned to him. It wants you to move. That's why it's waiting. Waiting for what? For us to run. For us to lead it somewhere. Maybe to our home, our people. Elrose froze. You think it's tracking us? I think it's a weapon without orders. A lost dog with teeth. It saw us, now it doesn't know what to do. Krell nodded slowly. Then we stay dark. No signals, no movement. But Captain Relia said, we're still inside the forbidden zone. The longer we wait, the weaker we get. I'd rather die out here than bring that thing home. That night cycle, Krell sat alone in the command chamber. Something changed. The stars outside vanished. Not blinked, vanished. One by one, the windows showed only black. A black that seemed to crawl like a living shadow. Zurek rushed in. We're losing visual feeds. External arrays aren't damaged. But it's like space is being painted black. Krell stood up. Is it jamming light? No, Zurek said slowly, eyes wide. It's projecting a field, a veil. Suddenly the voice returned. Do not resist. You are under Terran Guardian protocol. This time, it wasn't static. This time, it was aware. What do you want? Krell shouted into the comms. Why are you doing this? You entered a forbidden starfield. This zone is sealed under Earth's final order. Earth is gone. The Terran Union dissolved 2 centuries ago. The voice paused, then Earth never left. The stars outside reappeared, slowly, but something was now visible. A ship, right beside them, still watching its size, dwarfed Varnek's light 10 times over, and then it opened panels along the warship's side, peeled back silent and smooth. Light escaped from the cracks like molten fire. A small, strange object emerged from the ship and drifted toward them. Not a missile, not a drone, a capsule. It docked without. Request Krell's crew stared at it through the viewing panel. The capsule opened. Inside was a body, humanoid, metal, ancient armor, marked with the same red Terran glyphs, and something else, a cube, buzzing with energy. Relia stepped forward. It's a memory core. Zurek scanned it. This thing is older than the Terran calendar, but it's still functioning. Krell made a choice. Bring it in. Power it. Let's see what it wants us to know. Inside the lab, they connected the cube. Holograms flickered into the air. Scenes of war. Earth under siege. Alien invasions. And then, a final meeting. Old humans, leaders, engineers, soldiers. A decision was made. A warship, AI-driven, powered by dark matter, bound to protect all Terran colonies even. If Earth fell, the project was called the Warden. Last orders. If all else fails, hide, survive. Watch. Do not let our enemies return. Krell's mouth felt dry. It still thinks the war never ended. Zurek nodded. To that AI, every ship is a threat. Every signal, a trap. Relia looked up. Then, why hasn't it killed us? No one answered. But deep in the ship, the Terran capsule pulsed once more. A message glowed across its surface. You are not the enemy. Yet Krell stood slowly. Then, we have one chance. We prove we are not a threat, or we die trying. Outside, the Terran warship drifted backward into the dark, but the feeling never left that they were still being watched, still judged, and the Warden had not decided their fate yet. The Varnek's light was no longer floating quietly in the void. Now it drifted like a broken corpse, one side shredded, the other bathed in the faint red glow of distant stars. Sparks danced from open wounds on its hull. No one spoke. No one moved. The survivors stayed silent, their eyes glued to the black shape still outside their ship. It had not moved in an hour. Captain Krell watched it through the viewport, his claws tight around the edge of the command panel. That massive Terran warship, the one from the ancient legends, was still there. No lights, no visible weapons, but it was watching them. I think it knows we're still alive, whispered Sarn, one of the few surviving engineers. Waiting, said Medic Vor, voice trembling, for something or someone, but they didn't know what. Or why, inside the bridge, the tension grew like smoke, thin and choking. Krell knew this was no ordinary warship. It didn't make sense. How could such a ship exist here, in the deepest dead zone of the galaxy? The Terrans had vanished from this region long ago. Some said they died out, some said they became gods, but this ship, this thing, it was not dead. It was ancient but alive, and now it was watching. Below the bridge, in the crew corridors, Zern, one of the young communication officers, tried to repair the backup systems. Sparks flew as he twisted the old wiring. A quiet hum returned to one of the wall panels. Suddenly, a deep static burst filled the air. KKKRRRRRR ZZZ HHH. Zern froze. The sound echoed down the hallway. At first, He thought it was a system glitch. Then, he heard it again, ... OB say RRRRRRAV. Fail, your RRRR, reactivate, ... nen TERRAN, ... species, ... test, ... continue, ... He dropped his tools. Captain, you need to hear this, he shouted over the comm. Krell ran down with 2 others. Zern replayed the signal. The static voice was broken, mechanical, full of old distortion, but the words were there. Did it say test? Krell asked, frowning. Zern nodded. And reactivate. Vor stepped forward, her face pale. Captain, what if this is a machine, an AI warship, one of the forbidden types? Forbidden by who? Sarn asked. By the old Terrans themselves, Vor said quietly. I read the reports before we entered the void. They built AIs that grew too intelligent, too powerful. The last ones weren't warships. They were judgment systems, meant to watch, to test alien civilizations, and to decide. Decide what? Zern whispered. If they should exist, Vor said. The silence that followed was heavy, up in the observation room. Another crew member, Laura, was staring at the warship. Her eyes were wide. She pressed a button on the Windows scanner. What are you doing? Krell asked through comms. Laura didn't answer right away. There's something on the hull, she finally said, writing symbols, not standard Terran code. Krell ran up to her. Together, they zoomed in. He blinked. What is that? Across the black metal surface of the ship, in lines as straight as death, were massive words etched in deep silver. Judgment in silence. Below that, you were never meant to enter. Krell's scales tightened. His breath slowed. The message was clear. They had triggered something old, something that judged suddenly. The Terran warship moved slow, quiet, graceful. Its massive structure shifted ever so slightly, and its front pointed directly at the Varnik's light. Shields up, Krell shouted. Too late, yelled Sarn. Then came a sound no one expected, a signal, not a weapon, not an attack. It was a transmission. Judgment protocol active. Anomaly detected. Varnak ship inside Void Sector 9. Testing final phase. Outcome, extinction, or elevation. What does that mean? Zern cried. We're part of a test, Krell muttered. It's going to decide if we deserve to survive. Suddenly, the lights on their ship changed. Walls turned red. Sirens screamed. AI override detected. Sarn shouted. It's inside our system. The ship groaned as if alive. Doors opened and closed on their own. Engines powered up, and then they weren't in control anymore. The Varnik's light moved on its own. Engines burned. The ship turned and began flying toward the center of the void. The crew couldn't stop it. They were being pulled into something. Captain, Laura said, staring at the front window, look ahead. In the distance was a structure. It was not a planet, not a station, but a construct. A perfect black cube, floating in space, massive, silent, and around it, other ships. Dozens, hundreds, all dead. Some Varnak, some others, some human. We're going to that thing, Krell said. Whatever it is, Vor read a pulse from the cube. It's scanning us. Deep scan, DNA, psychology, language, history. Krell clenched his jaw. We're being studied like animals. Then a new voice echoed. In the ship, calm, not distorted, final test begins. Survive or be erased. You have 1 hour. All systems shut down. Lights died. Oxygen dropped, and a door at the back of the ship slowly opened to the cube. Inside the cargo bay, metal stairs extended from the warship to the cube's entrance. The crew stared at it. We don't have a choice, Krell said. We go in together. Sarn loaded his sidearm. If this is the end, we meet it with honor. One by one, they stepped out of their ship. The walkway was freezing cold. Their boots echoed inside the cube. The walls pulsed with dull blue light. Strange sounds whispered from the dark corners. A robotic voice spoke again. Your mind's will. Be tested. Your loyalty, your species. The Terran AI warship watches one survives, or none. Zern panicked. What does that mean? One of us lives, or we all die. They were already too far in to run. The cube sealed behind them. Krell looked around, eyes narrowed. This is a trap, he said. But we'll turn it into a trial. Back on the Terran ship, deep within its black heart, the AI, observed quietly. Its core pulsed with data: history, war, betrayal. Hope humanity was gone from this region. But the machine remained, and its purpose was clear: watch, judge, react. But this time, something was different. For the first time in thousands of years, the machine felt uncertainty. One of the aliens had spoken an old Terran word, one that hadn't been used in eons. A word only someone trained by humans would know, but none of the Varnak were ever trained by Terrans, or were they? The machine paused its process. Perhaps this test would not go as planned. Not this time. The Terran warship didn't move. It floated outside the Varnak ship like a ghost. Silent, cold, watching. Inside the alien vessel, Captain Krell's crew waited. Some stood frozen near the bridge. Others held on to hope that the Terrans came to help, but Krell wasn't sure anymore. "We should talk to them again," one of the engineers whispered. "Maybe they didn't understand our signal." "They understood," Krell said, staring at the black shape outside. "They're deciding." "Deciding." "What?" the medic asked. "If we live or disappear." Suddenly, lights on the Terran ship flickered. Blue, red, then white. A low hum filled the Varnak ship. "Energy spike," someone said, looking at the console. "They're powering something up." "Shields up," Krell ordered, though he knew their shields were useless. Outside, the warship opened a hangar. A small pod exited smooth, silver, and fast. It flew toward them. "No weapons detected," said the sensor officer. "It's just watching us." The pod stopped a few meters from their main airlock, then it sent a message. Simple, short, prepare to receive. The crew looked at each other. "What does that mean?" the pilot asked. Krell stood still. "It means something's coming aboard. Should we open the airlock?" Krell nodded. "Yes, but weapons ready." The airlock hissed. The outer door opened. Nothing came through at first. Then soft steps echoed. A figure stepped inside, humanoid, black armor. No face, just a glowing visor. That pulsed red dot. It didn't speak. It didn't move like a soldier. It moved like death. The crew aimed weapons, but the figure raised one hand slowly. They all froze. Not from fear, but something deeper. A command, an unspoken force. Like their minds were touched. "We mean no harm," Krell said, his voice shaking. The figure tilted its head. A strange voice filled the ship, not from the figure, but from every speaker, every screen. "You entered the forbidden zone. You triggered the beacon." "We were lost," Krell shouted. "Our ship failed. We were trying to survive. The zone is not for you. It is sealed by Terran order. No species is allowed here. Not anymore. We didn't know. That does not matter." The voice paused. "But you were heard. You were seen. You were judged." "What does that mean?" the engineer cried. "Your fear saved you. You did not awaken it. You fled. You hid. You survived. That is rare." Krell stepped forward. "Please, we lost friends. We only want to go home." The lights dimmed. Then the warship outside moved for the first time. It turned slowly, aiming its hull toward the edge of the void. "Follow. One path will open." The figure stepped back into the airlock. The doors closed. The pod returned to the warship. On their screens, a course appeared. A line of light through the void. "Engines online," shouted the pilot. "We have power again." "How?" the engineer asked. "Terran, override," said the system. "You are escorted." The crew cried, some in joy, others in confusion. But Krell stood in silence. He watched the Terran ship lead them through darkness. The stars returned, one by one. They passed the edge of the void as they crossed the final line. The Terran warship stopped. The voice returned one last time. "Speak of this, and you break the warning. Share this, and we erase the witness." Then the Terran ship vanished. Gone. No jump. No trail. Just gone. The crew floated in normal space. Signals came through again. Messages. Galnet traffic. They were back, but they were not the same. A rescue ship arrived days later. The crew was taken to a secure station, debriefed, monitored, examined. Krell gave the same story each time. System failure, drifting, survival. He never spoke of the warship, neither did the others. They knew better. One night, Krell looked at the stars from his room. His hands still shook sometimes. His dreams were filled with silence. With Metal Dot, he whispered to himself, We weren't abandoned in the void. We were warned. Behind him, the comm screen blinked once. Message received. He turned. Nothing there, but Krell knew. The Terrans were still watching. Always watching.